we're starting a brand new series this week called Judgment Call. Now, we all have opinions, and we all feel very strongly about our opinions, don't we? There are some things we love, and we love to talk about how much we love them. But do you know what I think we love even more than loving something? Hating something, right?
I mean, when we get the chance to talk about something we absolutely despise, it seems like we could talk about it for hours. Maybe it's because hating something makes us feel like we have power, like we're better than the people who are lame enough to like whatever that thing is. Whether it's a movie, a restaurant, a musician, or a sports team, I think we'd all agree that one thing is true. We love to judge stuff. Every day, we all make judgment calls.
But here's the deal. When we judge movies, music, sports, and restaurants, nobody really gets hurt. But it gets messy, complicated, and even problematic when we take this judging thing and apply it to other people. Whether you like to admit it or not, I guarantee there has been a time, probably even in the last week, when you made a judgment call about someone. Maybe you judged someone based on the way they dressed, or how good they were at something, or a rumor you heard about them, or who their friends are, or a choice they made. Look, I get it. We're all pretty good at judging each other.
Maybe some of you are thinking, so what? What's the big deal with judging? I was just telling the truth. But here's the thing. The problem is that usually when we judge someone, we end up hurting them a lot more than helping them. If you think about it, it's pretty easy to remember a time when judging someone didn't help at all. It just hurt. Right now, maybe you're remembering a time when you hurt someone with your judgment calls. Or maybe you're remembering a time when you were hurt by someone else's rush to judgment. Maybe it's both.
That's because it's so easy to move from judging someone to making fun of them, to excluding them, to embarrassing them, to cutting off a friendship with them and hurting them deeply. You see, the problem isn't simply that we make judgment calls, it's that we usually make bad ones. We look for the flaws in others. We push people down so we can build ourselves up. We look for ways to hurt people rather than help them. And that's the wrong way to judge. Because when we look at someone and see only their flaws, we've made a pretty bad judgment call.
So to help us figure out how to make better judgment calls, let's take a look at a story in the Bible that I think can make a big difference in the way we see and treat other people. In this story, Jesus meets a woman, and this woman was in big trouble. As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd.
Now here's something you need to know. The Pharisees were a group of religious people who thought the best way to make God happy was to follow every rule. There were lots of rules, and the Pharisees knew each and every one of them. And one big rule was this: don't cheat on your husband or wife. But that's exactly what this woman had done. Teacher, they said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?
Right away, the Pharisees made their judgment call. This woman was guilty. She was a sinner. She deserved to be punished. And the punishment, according to the rules, was death. Now just imagine what that must have been like. Everyone in the crowd was probably holding their breath, especially the woman, as they watched this showdown between the Pharisees and Jesus. What was going to happen? What was Jesus going to do? Was he going to follow the rules or not? Now check out what he did next. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust.
Silence. What did Jesus just say? Let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. In that moment, when the crowd and Pharisees were ready to cast judgment upon the woman, Jesus reminded them of something they'd forgotten. We have all made mistakes. We've all screwed up. We've all done things worthy of judgment and punishment. Sure, maybe it makes us feel better to think, well, sure, I've done some bad stuff, but at least I've never done what she did. We love to imagine that our mistakes somehow aren't as bad as someone else's mistakes, but that's not how Jesus saw things. Instead of going along with the Pharisees' scheme to find and punish the worst sinner they could, Jesus reminded everyone that we're all in the same boat. We've all done things that deserve judgment. It's like he says, before you judge others, look at yourself.
If you were that woman, wouldn't you want your accusers to do just that? When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with a woman. And there was Jesus, alone with this woman. No one left to accuse her but him. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more."
Now, did you see what Jesus did? Yes, Jesus acknowledged that she messed up pretty badly. He didn't pretend that her sin never happened, but he didn't condone throwing rocks at her either. He's not there to hurt her. He's there to help her. He's not there to put her down. He's there to lift her up. He's not there to condemn. He's there to forgive.
Okay, so what does this mean for us? I mean, we don't usually find ourselves in a position where we're deciding whether or not to throw rocks at people. So how do we put this story into practice in our own lives? Well, here are a few ideas. Remember, you're not perfect. When you're tempted to make a judgment call about someone, remember that you mess up too.
Don't rank sins. We like to think that gossiping is better than smoking, which is not as bad as sexting, which is obviously better than murder. But there is no ranking for sins.
Drop the rock. When you're tempted to judge someone this week, don't. Drop the rock. Choose humility, peace, forgiveness, mercy, and grace instead of judgment. Because here's the simple but profound point Jesus was making to that crowd and to us too. Before you judge others, look at yourself.
What if you tried that this week? What if instead of making a judgment call that hurts someone, you choose to look at yourself first, to remember you're not perfect, and to drop your rock? I think it will make a big difference, not just for others, but for you too. So this week, remember, before you judge others, do what Jesus suggested and look at yourself first.